Hare Krishna, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhatta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhatta Vrinda, Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya, Jaya Nityananda, Jaya Advaita Chandra, Jaya Gaura Bhatta Vrinda. To continue reading from Caitanya Caritamrita Adi-Lila, Chapter 7. Chapter 7 speaks about the Panchatattva, and we are on text 11. Krishna Madhuryera Eka Adbhut Swabhav Apana Ashwadite Krishna Kare Bhakta Bhav. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The transcendental mellow of conjugal love of Krishna is so wonderful that Krishna himself accepts the form of a devotee to relish and taste it fully. Sorry. Krishna, although Krishna is the reservoir of all pleasure, he has a special intention to taste himself by accepting the form of a devotee. It is to be concluded that although Lord Chaitanya is present in the form of a devotee, he is Krishna himself. Therefore, Vaishnavas sing, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahi Anya. Radha and Krishna combined together are Shri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And as Shri Swarup Damodar Goswami has said, Chaitanya Kyam Prakatam Adhuna Tad Davyam Chaikyam Aptam. Radha and Krishna assumed oneness in the form of Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So as we had been hearing that Krishna is like feeling, what is my devotees feeling? You know, I want to feel this happiness. They are serving me, but they are feeling more happy than me. And so he wanted to relish and taste this mellow of conjugal love. He wanted to feel, what does a devotee feel because they love Krishna so much? So he came, Radha and Krishna combined, came as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Ite Bhakta Bhav Dare Chaitanya Gosai Bhakta Swarup Tanra Nityananda Bhai. For this reason, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Teacher, accepts the form of a devotee and accepts Lord Nityananda as his elder brother. Bhakta Avatar Tanra Acharya Gosai Etina Tatve Sabe Prabhu Karigai. Sri Advaita Acharya is Lord Chaitanya's incarnation as a devotee. Therefore, these three tattvas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Gosai, are the predominators or masters. Gosai means Goswami. A person who has full control over the senses and mind is called a Goswami or Gosai. One who does not have such control is called a Godas or a servant of the senses and cannot become a spiritual master. A spiritual master who has actually controlled over the mind and senses is called Goswami. Although the Goswami title has become a hereditary designation for unscrupulous men, actually the title Gosai or Goswami began from Sri Rupa Goswami, who presented himself as an ordinary grihast and minister in government service, but became a Goswami when he was actually elevated by the instruction of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Goswami means someone who has already controlled the mind and the senses. Goswami. Go are the senses, Swami, master. If one is able to control in mind and senses, then he's called Goswami. And such a person, he is eligible to become the spiritual master of the whole world. But one who has not controlled his mind and senses is called a Godas. So Goswami, many people have the last name Goswami, or they say we are from the Goswami family. But it doesn't mean that being born in the family makes you automatically a Goswami. Just like being born in the family of doctor does not automatically make one a doctor. One still has to go to the medical school and get training, practice, and then one becomes a qualified doctor. Similarly, some people say, oh, yes, I'm Goswami. but they are known as caste Goswamis if they are not actually, if they have not actually controlled the mind and senses. Then they are just called caste Goswamis and nothing else. So here Srila Rupa Goswami, he showed by his example how a person can become a Goswami. He was working in the government. He was a grihast, he was working in the government, and how he took shelter of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he controlled his mind and senses, he showed by his practical example. Therefore, Goswami is not a hereditary title, but refers to one's qualifications. When one is highly elevated in spiritual advancement, regardless of where from he comes, he may be called Goswami. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Gosai Prabhu are natural Goswamis because they belong to the Vishnu Tattva category. So Lord Chaitanya, he's Krishna himself in the mood of Radharani. Nityananda Prabhu, he's Balaram. Advaita Acharya, he is Mahavishnu. So all these three, they are Vishnu Tattva. God, Tattva of God is called Vishnu Tattva. So we living entities, we are called Jiva Tattva. We are expansions of Krishna, but we are called separated, Vibhinamsha, separated expansions, parts and parcels of God. So we are not Vishnu Tattva, we are Jiva Tattva. So as such, all of them are Prabhus.
I just have one question, but how can he be Vishnu Tattva? He's Krishna himself, right?
Yeah, so he's Vishnu Tattva, he's God.
Okay, so Krishna himself can be Vishnu Tattva because...
Yes, Vishnu Tattva is coming from him.
Okay.
He's God, right?
He's Krishna himself.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
He's Krishna himself, yes.
So he's
Vishnu Tattva. Yes.
Okay.
So we are speaking of Tattva right now. So the Tattva, So he's Vishnu Tattva. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, okay, and Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita Prabhu. So they are the Prabhus, masters or predominators because he's God. They are God and his expansions. And they're sometimes called Chaitanya Gosai, Nityananda Gosai, and Advaita Gosai. Unfortunately, their so-called descendants who do not have the qualifications of Goswamis have accepted this title as a hereditary designation or a professional degree that is not in accord with Shastric injunctions. Because some people say, oh, we are descendants of family of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, or we are descendants of family of Advaita Acharya. And so they demand to be getting that kind of awe and reverence. But if one is not qualified, as we said, if one does not qualify himself, study, get trained as a doctor, we should not go to that person for treatment just because he's born in the family of doctors, but he himself personally is not qualified to treat us. Similarly, just because someone is born in the family of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, because right now there are some people who says, oh yes, we are coming from the family of Lord Nityananda Prabhu, a family of Advaita Acharya. But that does not mean anything. We have to see, are they qualified enough or not to have this title of Goswami? Have they controlled their mind and senses or not? Eka Mahaprabhu, Ara Prabhu Dui Jana, Adui Prabhu Seve Mahaprabhu Racharana. One of them is Mahaprabhu and the other two are Prabhus. These two Prabhus serve the lotus feet of Mahaprabhu. Although Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Nityananda Prabhu, and Sri Advaita Prabhu all belong to the same Vishnu category, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is nevertheless accepted as the Supreme, and the other two Prabhus engage in his transcendental loving service to teach ordinary living entities that every one of us is subordinate to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Lord Chaitanya is called Mahaprabhu. Why? Because it is at his feet that all the other Prabhus surrender, submit to him, because he's the Supreme Lord himself. He's Krishna himself. So even his expansions, who are Prabhus, their mood is of surrender to the Lord. And so Lord Nityananda and Advaita Prabhu, they're teaching us by example that they're teaching us, we are ordinary living entities, how we can also follow the instructions of Lord Chaitanya. In another place in the Caitanya Caritamrita Adi-Lila, chapter 5, text 142, it is said, Ekale Ishvara Krishna Ara Sabha Bhritya. The only Supreme Master is Krishna, and all others, both Vishnu Tattva and Jiva Tattva, engage in the service of the Lord. Both the Vishnu Tattva as Nityananda Prabhu and Advaita, and the Jiva Tattva, Srivasadi, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, engage in the service of the Lord. But one must distinguish between the Vishnu Tattva servitors and the Jiva Tattva servitors. So, Ekale Krishna, Ekale Ishvara Krishna, Ara Sabha Bhritya. There's only one Supreme. Only one Supreme Master. When we say Supreme, means what? So, you know, somebody is superior to someone, someone is superior to someone. Like that, we do research work. Research work. Until we come to one person, there is no Supreme beyond him. He is the Supreme of everyone, and that is God. That is God. God is the Supreme. So, Ekale Ishvara Krishna. The only Supreme Master is Krishna. Everyone else are his servitors. Whether they belong to Vishnu Tattva category, means they might be his expansions, his incarnations, or belong to the Jiva Tattva category, which are the souls, the ordinary souls. And so those are us. So, but there is a difference. There's a difference between Vishnu Tattva servitor and the Jiva Tattva servitor. We have to understand. We are not Vishnu Tattva. We can never become Vishnu Tattva. We are always Jiva Tattva. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, soul is eternal. Eternal means fixed. There is no change. When you say if there is a change, means we are going against the characteristic of eternal. Eternal means that's it. That's the position of the soul. Cannot change. Not that after 1 billion years or after liberation, I will become Vishnu Tattva. No, no, we are eternal. That's what we have to understand. Eternal. So the Jiva Tattva servitor, the spiritual master, is actually the servitor of God. So the spiritual master, he's Jiva Tattva. He's here in he's a Jiva Tattva, and he's showing us how to serve God. How to serve God. As explained in previous verses, in the absolute world, there are no such differences. Yet one must observe these differences in order to distinguish the Supreme from his subordinates. So in the spiritual world is absolute. Spiritual world is absolute. This world is a world of duality, master, servant, light, dark, heat, cold. But in the spiritual world, there's no duality. So as such, there is no difference between servant and master. But yet there is a difference. Okay, there is no difference because it's an absolute world. But yet there is a difference in the mood. The mood is totally different. That even God wants to taste this love that the other living entities have for him. His pure devotees, in the spiritual world, they are all the living entities are pure, right? All living entities are pure, and they are completely in love with him, and he wants to feel this love. What is this love that this living entity is feeling? So even though there is no difference, there is still a difference. So God is always God. Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam. So God continues to maintain everyone, whether in the material world or spiritual world. He's still the supreme. Mm-hmm. Is that okay?
Yes.
Did you want to add anything to it?
No.
Okay, so we'll stop here for today. Thank you so much for listening and joining in. Caitanya Caritamrita ki jai, Shilpa ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna.